What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, yesterday we had a pretty big update announced for the PlayStation 5, specifically with PlayStation Plus getting some big titles, one of which came out just about a year ago that has people asking some questions as to the sales of that title. We'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about the PlayStation Plus Classics category as Sony actually woke up and started adding some requested titles, and we'll also be going over a pretty big gaming sale for physical copies that span Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. We're going to start today with a live service game, which is an entire category that's been thrown into doubt at this point after we saw a bunch of them just have their end of service announcement all in the span of about a week. Well, one that people are starting to keep a close eye on is Multiversus, and this has to do with the concurrent player count that is basically the lifeblood of these live service free-to-play games. For example, you can see this over on VGC, where they noticed that Multiversus' daily peak Steam player count has dropped more than 99% since launch. This happening last year, so we're, 6 or 7 months out from when it first released. Remember, it came out and it was pretty popular. 150,000 or so on Steam. Now it's down to a daily peak of just under 1,000 users, and that becomes an issue for these live service games because they need to keep people engaged, as the place they're making their money is through battle passes, microtransactions, and all of that. There's no upfront cost to get in, so they got to keep you there and get you wanting to spend money on other things in the game. And as I mentioned, people are on high alert with these live service titles after seeing so many get shut down. It's hard to say what's exactly going to happen with Multiversus. Maybe they get something that gets revealed, a character, whatnot, another aspect to the game, and then all of a sudden it shoots back up the charts. But when you see these numbers, it does become kind of concerning. Also, sticking with VGC here for a minute, there is a story that's been sort of progressing and evolving over the last year or so, which we can see this over on VGC. Saudi Arabia has reportedly increased its stake in Nintendo again. This is the kingdom's investment fund. It's now said to own just over 7%, 7.08% to be exact. Now, they had first acquired just over 5% last year in May, and then last month increased it to over 6%. Now they've gone up another 1% to 7.08%. This had people pretty concerned just in general, the idea of, wait a minute, are they moving in and slowly acquiring Nintendo to where they are they're the majority owner? Can they do a hostile takeover? First of all, it's not actually possible. This is a publicly traded company, and that's one of the issues with it is obviously anyone come in and buy it, and Saudi Arabia coming in and gobbling up now 7% of it. It's just kind of how it is with the free market and the ability to just buy stock as you please. And mostly they're looking at this, I'm sure, as an investment because Nintendo going forward, most likely they'll launch another system, there'll be a big media blitz, and I'm sure they'll report a lot of excitement, exposure, and profits around all of that. So in this case, no, there's no possibility for a hostile takeover. There aren't enough public shares out there for the float for that to happen, as Nintendo still controls majority share. But I wouldn't be shocked if Saudi Arabia and their public investment fund continue to pile up shares with Nintendo. Really, the question is, how far are they going to go with it? Oh, and for those wondering what the inside of the PlayStation VR 2 headset looks like, Sony decided to post up a teardown over on YouTube. You can see some of it here, and they will do this with their systems. Remember, they did it for the PlayStation 5, and we sort of did some freeze frame analysis and took a look at a few things with the liquid metal being shown off. In this case, though, you're seeing the PSVR 2 headset get torn apart, and I think this is less exciting for people. I mean, it's interesting because you see the fan in there, they have the chipset, and they show off the different sensors and cameras and all of this, but it's technically not like a system or anything there. Still kind of cool to see it get open up. I thought about opening mine up, and I still might, but to be honest, this kind of shows it off pretty well. It's not a brand new system necessarily, and I would like to use the PSVR 2 going forward for any games that show up there that might be interesting. Hey, if I can secure another one, then maybe we'll do a full teardown and take a look inside. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the PlayStation 5 update that was announced yesterday. Big time update, and I was pretty excited to see some of the games on this list. We're going to split it into two sections. We'll start off with the PlayStation Plus Extra tier, and then we'll move over to the PlayStation Plus Premium. So let's head over here to PlayStation Blog, starting at the top. They have a nice little card here showcasing the different titles with obviously the big one, dead center. Yes, that's right. Horizon Forbidden West is heading into PlayStation Plus Extra and of course Premium. And this one, I feel like surprised people, although it does go along with what Sony has suggested that their strategy will be when it comes to premium releases and then their subscription services. So Horizon Forbidden West, PS4 and PS5. All of this will start February 21st, so looking towards next week for all of this to go live. From there, we have The Quarry, that's PS4 and PS5, Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, PS4, Outriders, PS4 and PS5, Scarlet Nexus, that's a pretty cool game that kind of got pushed by the wayside. I think it should do well here going into the service, PS4 and PS5. Borderlands 3, PS4 and PS5. Then we have Tekken 7 on the PS4. Ace Combat 7, Skies Unknown on the PS4. Earth Defense Force 5 on the PS4. We have Ononaki, which is pretty cool to see that go in, along with Lost Fear, and then also I Am Setsuna, all of which on the PS4. Then we have the Forgotten City, PS4 and PS5. Now, looking at something like Resident Evil 7, or we have Ace Combat, those do have VR modes, and I should have looked at, I am curious if they will work with PSVR 2, if they have any plans for an update or any of that, because those are pretty cool games to at least have an experience in VR with. Now, the big one that people were questioning and looking at, a little confused, Horizon Forbidden West. It's already in their subscription service. I mean, almost exactly 1 year, by the way, when it comes out on the 21st of February, getting added into these services. It'll be maybe 2 or 3 days beyond the 1 year mark, which is kind of what I was thinking they would have for their timetable. 1 to 2 years, these different premium titles end up in their service that, yes, costs more money, $100 to $120 per year. The question people had is, does this mean that Horizon Forbidden West did poorly? Like, were the sales below expectations? Well, it's hard to say because we don't know what Sony's expectations were for Horizon Forbidden West. What we can do, though, is look at, for example, the NPD sales charts for all of 2022, this being in the US, and for Horizon, it'll count boxed and digital sales, and, well, it's at number 9. And I'll admit, for a game that had the majority of the year to sell, coming in below many titles that didn't, like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, those are just the physical copies, by the way, Lego Star Wars, God of War Ragnarok, Madden, Elden Ring. Well, Elden Ring did have quite a while to sell, but you see many titles taking up the top 10 above Horizon that had maybe a month or two on the market to be counted with MPD sales. And then couple that with the fact that it was also bundled in with many PlayStation 5s, and it does make you think a bit about how Horizon did at launch and then throughout the year. But realistically, Sony is probably looking at this as a longer-term tale for its sales overall, and they have, I'm sure, other plans for it. Considering it going into the service, that lines up with their plans around their like 3-tiered approach, right? So they released it at retail, full price premium. Then about a year or so later, they mentioned, it would go, a movie would then go to DVD, right? It'd go into theaters, then it'd go to DVD or streaming. In this case, they're putting it into their subscription service, and then they're gonna release it on PC probably in the next 6 to 12 months, right? Like, I wouldn't be shocked if we get that announcement that this could be heading there after the DLC releases, which that's the other aspect. They're putting this game on the subscription service for more people to download and try out, and then probably buy into the downloadable content, Burning Shores, that's coming up here to start off this year. So there's a lot of strategy here involved with Sony, and I think maybe in a couple of years they would announce that Horizon Forbidden West reached 20 million sold or something there. That's what they announced for Zero Dawn, and no announcement yet for Forbidden West. So I kind of think they wanted to outsell that number, 20 million, before they start making announcements around it. But based on the fact that there's rumors around a Horizon Zero Dawn remaster, whatever that is, and then also their multiplayer aspect, a whole new game, it does seem like they're all in with this Horizon intellectual property. So even if sales were maybe a little below expectations or at expectations for Forbidden West on release for its first year, I think they have plans to really push this franchise forward either way. Next up, let's talk about some exciting news for PlayStation Plus Premium, because For a while, it hasn't been great with some of the releases they've put in there, and we've called for several PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2 games, even PSP games to go in. Well, finally, it looks like Sony realized, hey, wait, we have some titles we can put in here, and we'll start from the top looking at Legend of Dragoon. Thank you, Sony. Seriously, this is a really cool title to get dropped in. It was an awesome RPG back then that Square Enix had published and all this, so it only made sense that it would eventually find its way into the premium service. Now, they're going to have up rendering, rewind, quick save, custom video filters, all the stuff you'd expect in this service. And I assume there will also be trophy support, so pretty cool. You'll be able to go in if you're a big fan of Legend Dragoon or even trying it for the first time, and you could work towards a platinum trophy for it in 2023. What a time to be alive. Then you also have Wild Arms 2, another good drop here for the PS1. Same deal when it comes to the extra benefits with rendering, rewind, quick save, all of this. And then Harvest Moon Back to Nature. Pretty cool title here to have in there. I mean, Harvest Moon, there's so many of these, but back then on the PS1, still a really cool title to have. And then this is interesting, and I'm a little concerned this is kind of the route that they're going. Destroy All Humans on the PS4. Okay, so they haven't really been doing a lot of PS2 games at all, right? Like, none. And to an extent, I kind of feel like Sony is saying, well, hey, Destroy All Humans was from the PS2 generation, right? Even though this is the remake that was done for the PS4, it's still a PS2 game. In fact, it's mentioned in the description, this is the PS4 remake of the legendary PS2 Alien Invasion action-adventure. So guys, come on. They're putting PS2 games in here. It's just the PS4 remake. But outside of the strange method of them apparently putting PS2 games on the service, which I hope does change here in the coming months, this isn't bad. Legend of Dragoon, pretty cool. Wild Arms 2, and then a Harvest Moon title. Much better than some of the games we've seen in like the last 4 or 5 months going into PlayStation Plus Premium. With my expectations basically to the floor, this is a welcome surprise. I will certainly be checking out Legend of Dragoon next week. Next up, let's talk about some unfortunate news for a release that I was really hoping Bandai Namco would have put this game out and it would have been an awesome remaster. That's Tales of Symphonia. Turns out it wasn't a great outing for Bandai Namco. Feels like they really pushed out the bare minimum here for a title, for me anyway, that was an absolute classic from the GameCube era. We did have some reviews come in at Metacritic, only 7 of them, but the game is currently sitting at a 69 on the Switch with the split 2 positive and 5 mixed. As reviewers had a chance to take a look at this, and many reviews dropped yesterday, it appears that not only is it just a bare minimum effort across the board, it's actually worse on the Switch overall. Like, this is probably the worst version they've ever put out for the game, and that includes the PS2 release. Yeah, so there are many reviews out there now. For example, this one here, it was posted up by Nintendo World Report, and many of them go over and compare things like load times, which are worse on the Switch than the GameCube version. Yeah, again, not really sure what happened here, Bandai. There are things that they cut out, like the animation going from overworld to the battle where you have kind of the glass breaking and all that. That's just gone. Any of the fades that they would do in cutscenes are just quick cuts. And there's actual graphical glitches around text, which still shows up low resolution, and there's aliasing everywhere, and it's locked at 30 frames. It's hard for me to recommend the game in this state, which is a shame, because the game itself, Tales of Symphonia, is an awesome game to recommend, but not this version. And I looked around at the PlayStation 4 version just to see a quick comparison here, being played even on the PS5 through backwards compatibility, and it's much better. Still locked at 30 frames, but a lot of the issues that are showing up here with the Switch version are not there in the PlayStation version. So I don't know what happened here with Bandai Namco, but they gotta get a patch out there. You can't treat Tales of Symphonia like this. It is, it's just a travesty. But for me, I'm gonna pick it up, I believe, on the PlayStation, and then maybe get it on the Switch down the road. It's just a shame that the current state of this game. So hopefully Bandai Namco has some sort of update or message they can put out there on release day just to give people an idea, maybe a plan of action here to bring the Switch version up to, well, the bare minimum. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about a big gaming sale that is currently ongoing. And I like to point this one out in particular because it would be for physical copies of the games, and I've had pretty good luck and that's with GameFly, for the condition these games show up in. So let's take a look over here. This is their big pre-played sale they have going on. They will do this from time to time, and what's great is it will include titles that are fairly new. For example, they have God of War Ragnarok on the PS5 at $50. Saints Row is $15. So if you've been waiting to pick that up at like almost bargain bin prices, there you go. Midnight Suns, which is a game that got badly overlooked. That one's $40. Gotham Knights at $30. Bayonetta 3. Hey, people say Nintendo games don't go on sale very often. Here it is now at $40. We do have Crisis Core Reunion, that already at $35 there. Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope at $35. Evil West at $40. That might still be a little expensive for Evil West. But then Sonic Frontiers there at $30. A Plague Tale Requiem, $28. There's Star Ocean: The Divine Force, that one at $30. Digimon Survive on the Xbox One at $15. Ghostbusters Spirits Unleashed at $15. Need for Speed Unbound at $40. And then Dragon Ball The Breakers Special Edition at $10. So overall, not too bad for physical copies of games on sale. It'll come with everything that's usually included: the case, cover art, game disc, and, well, of course, obviously no manual, because who needs those anymore? But otherwise, definitely worth checking out there to see if there's anything you wanted to pick up for the backlog or just grab at a discount. And before we go to the comment of the day, we're gonna take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask which legacy console generation on the PS Plus premium service is your favorite. 56% said PS2. Yeah, Sony really needs to start hitting that PS2 collection hard, because I do believe the PS2 has the most potential to get a bunch of signups if they start announcing the right titles, and that is just such a massive library. I know there's a lot of licensing they would probably have to navigate for certain games, but it feels like there's a large pool of titles that wouldn't even deal with licensing issues that they can just start pulling from and dropping on there. The only thing I think of is it's just, I don't know, more work, more effort than the PS1 or even PSP titles, since it seems like the route they're going are PS2 games that have already been converted over to the PS4, and then it's just through backwards compatibility. But to me, it's $120 a year, Sony. You have propped up PS2 as one of the prominent features. It's time to start coming through with them. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Fern saying, a Zelda-themed Switch just makes sense. I used to wonder why they didn't do one with Breath of the Wild, but it was a launch title. Coming after the Wii U failure, a lot of uncertainty there. Now, after the huge success of both Breath of the Wild and the Switch, not releasing a Zelda-themed Switch would be a missed opportunity. Yeah, I do believe the Zelda-themed Switch is coming. The part that I'm really hoping for is that they just have Joy-Cons, or a Pro Controller. I wouldn't mind getting a Zelda Tears of the Kingdom Pro Controller specifically. The Joy-Cons, they're just not as usable. The sticks themselves have less travel, and obviously they tend to drift. The Pro Controller, though, like I have the Monster Hunter Pro Controller that I use, and I wouldn't mind getting a newer one that I can use there also. And let's be real, you feel like there's a lot of really cool things they could do with just the face of the Pro Controller to go along with Tears of the Kingdom. But I expect, at the bare minimum, a Switch themed around the game. I would just like them to go a bit further and do things like accessories, a controller, Joy-Con, all of that. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today, whereas PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium getting updates with Horizon Forbidden West already going into the service. Do you think that's an indication as to how the game did when it comes to sales? Then also, what about the big gaming sale going on with GameFly? Any good suggestions that you have for that one? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.